I'm Tristan Carson, and this is my topic of choice, understanding the effects of self-esteem and personality. My thesis statement is, how do self-esteem and personality influence our interaction with emotions and statistically suggest who's most likely to be happy in life? So what is self-esteem? Self-esteem, as defined by Google AI, is your overall opinion of yourself, reflecting your belief in your own ability and worth. And some people may think that that's an unreliable source, and that's completely okay. I actually agree with that Google AI cannot be a resource in and of itself. However, our book by James Klatt says the evaluation of one's own abilities and performance and worth is what makes up your self-esteem. And so I think that that's a good definition to understand what self-esteem is. So what is personality? Well, Google AI defines personality as the unique and enduring pattern of an individual's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that make them distinct from others. Again, our book by James Klatt says all personality is all the consistent ways in which the behavior of one person differs from that of others, especially in social situations. I would like to point out that these terms are both very similar in nature. The only thing that's different is with Klatt's definition, he emphasizes that it is especially important in social situations. And so I just wanted to point that out. I think that it's unique that he notices that. So what are the big 5 traits? Now that we've got the definitions out of the way, what are the big 5 traits that make up one's personality? The first one is emotional stability. Emotional stability is a tendency to minimize unpleasant emotions. That means that when you're having a rough day, you're able to notice your emotions and you're able to regulate the emotions that you feel. A very good trait to have, I would say. Extroversion is a tendency to seek stimulation and to enjoy the company of other people. This is, I believe, where we get our term extrovert and introvert. Extroversion is a love for other people, while introversion can be a love for people, but it's a different kind of love, and you get it from, being alone or being by yourself, whereas extroversion is you refill your battery with the company of other people. Agreeableness is our third term. Agreeableness is a tendency to be compassionate towards others, to be able to notice other people and genuinely care for them, genuinely want to get to know them. Something I've heard growing up is to be known is to be loved, and I would say that comes in the agreeableness term. Conscientiousness, a tendency to show self-discipline, to be dutiful, and to strive for achievement and competency. This would, fall under wanting to clean your room or wanting to clean your house, keeping the dishes or the sink empty. I would say that is, or what's the word I'm looking for? Being responsible. This would fall under being responsible, or being responsible would fall under this. Our 5th and final term, or trait, I should say, is openness to new experience. Openness to experience is a tendency to enjoy new intellectual experiences and ideas. So if someone were to ask you, like, hey, do you think art is intrinsically valuable in and of itself? To answer yes to that question would mean that, you're open to that experience. You're open to agreeing that art in and of itself is intrinsically valuable, and it doesn't need to have another reason for being. It just is. And these can fluctuate between people, and that's what makes all of us so unique, is because there are hundreds of thousands of different ways that these 5 scales of personality traits can influence an individual. And then lastly, or our last thing before we move on to our conclusion, is the measurement of self-esteem. So I want you to take a minute and answer true or false each of these 4 questions. 1, I feel that I have a number of good qualities. 2, I can do all things, or I can do things as well as most other people. 3, at times I think I'm no good at all. And 4, I'm a failure. And psychoanalysts have found out is that if you answer true to the first 2 and false to the second 2, it indicates that you probably have a high self-esteem. And that's a good thing. To have a high self-esteem is a good trait because it shows that you are competent. It shows that you care about yourself and you care about how you hold yourself, but not in an egotistical kind of way. It's good to have a high self-esteem, but you can't let that go too high or you go into a superficial ego, and you can't let that go too low, because then you will fall into depression and other not good things, I'll say. So what are the takeaways? Now that we've learned all this information, how can we take it to understand, let's go back to our thesis, to understand how self-esteem and personality influence our interaction with emotions and statistically suggest who is most likely to be happy. First, I want to say a good balance makes for a happier life. Our book by Colette says higher self-esteem makes people more outgoing. And outgoing behavior makes people feel happier. He even goes on to say that even though, if you have introverted friends or if you're introverted yourself, and you pretend, let's say, to be extroverted, you go out and you're social, that can make you happier. And not in a superficial way. Like, obviously, I myself am an introvert and I enjoy being in social settings, and that often makes me feel happier. Just to even get out for an hour or 2 is very fulfilling for the soul, I would say. And then lastly, I would say our ultimate conclusion is the happiest people tend to be those who are mildly extroverted in nature. And I say mildly extroverted because you don't want someone who is, has the highest self-esteem in the world, and is ready to go jump off a bridge because they think they can do anything. That's damaging, and that's not helpful to understanding who we are as people and who we are as image bearers of Christ. But I will say that getting out of your comfort zone and being mildly extroverted is really, really good and really, really helpful to our soul and to the body of Christ and to the church.